For time delays, so this is something that we are going to utilize after correct responding has been established. So we've selected, our prompting hierarchy. We're doing response prompts, and we are successful. Right, our prompts were able to occasion correct responding. It has now been established. So now we got to figure out how to get those prompts out of there. Time delays are something that we utilize after that correct responding has been established, and we insert time delays to give the individual an opportunity to respond independently to that target stimulus. So initially, maybe it was the target stimulus, insert a prompting technique. Now we're going to put space in between there and allow for the individual to respond independently. With time delays, often prompting strategies are typically kept the same as initial teaching. So whatever prompting strategies you were doing before, you're still going to utilize those. You're just with time delays, you're adding another component, right? You're adding that time delay to give the individual, the opportunity to respond independently before you then reinitiate your prompting strategies. And this is kind of what that looks like. So this could be an example here where you have a teacher asking, "What is this?" The target response as a student says a cat. The consequence is a teacher provides some praise to the student. But maybe you've been having to utilize some different types of prompts, some full verbal prompts. So the teacher says cat. So what is this? Cat. Student says cat. Child receives praise. Now we got to figure out how to get that prompt out of there. So you move to adding a time delay procedure. So now you want to add some space in there for the child to independently respond before you then add in your prompt. We have two types of time delay. We have progressive time delay and constant time delay. So with progressive time delay, we are, with both, we're starting at zero, right? Where the prompt is immediately inserted following that target stimulus. Now we're moving to a time delay, which we have to get some space in there for the individual to independently respond. With progressive, we're going to systematically extend that time delay. We're going to go from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. With constant time delay, that time delay is fixed. We're going to select a number. So we have the 0 second, but now we're just going to start with 3. And we're going to hold it at 3. That will be the constant time delay procedure. So progressive time delay, again, an example here, we have that same CAD example. And with the progressive time delay, the 1 second time delay is for the first 2 trials. And then maybe, if that's successful, we're going to move to a 2 second time delay for the next 3 trials. With the constant time delay, like I mentioned previously, we are selecting an interval and we're implementing that delay every time. So maybe we have selected 3 or we selected 5 seconds, and we're going to have that specific interval be the delay every time. So let's review. So we have a teacher that waits 5 seconds before using a full verbal prompt when working on a reading target. What strategy is the teacher using? Least to most prompting, most to least prompting, graduated guidance, or time delay? So the answer is D, time delay. They're using a time delay procedure, right? We have an amount of time that's being inserted between the target stimulus and the prompt to allow the individual to respond independently. So now we have a 3-minute activity. So identify 2 goals for your students and then give an example of how graduated guidance could be useful and how time delay could be useful. So next we're going to focus on transferring stimulus control, so looking at some different fading techniques. So we have stimulus fading and stimulus shape transformation. So with stimulus fading, what we're doing is highlighting a physical dimension of that stimulus. So this could be color, size, position, etc. And what we're doing with this is trying to increase the probability of a correct response. So a stimulus fading example might be that we want somebody to write the letter A. So initially, we can look at that first example where we have not only the full letter, we also have kind of some boundaries with the way that the letter is displayed. But we even have some numbers and some arrows that show exactly where to make the marks to create that shape. Then we move to just the dots, right? And then from there, we have not where we have faded to where we only have half the letter visible. So the instruction in this example might be something like write the letter A. With the first example, that's you know it's intrusive in the sense that it's the answer is we're completely prompting the response, right? The answer is completely available to the learner, and then we are trying to fade out that intrusiveness of that stimulus to where by the end, we wouldn't have any aspects of the letter. We would just say write the letter A, and the individual can write the letter A. Another example might be giving the directive to go wash your hands with the presentation of a visual of somebody washing their hands underwater with soap. Over time, we reduce um, that stimulus in terms of how the contrast that it shows, like how easy it is to be viewed for that individual. So take a couple minutes here to identify a goal for a student and create a stimulus fading procedure for that goal. Next is stimulus shape transformation. So this is where we're going to utilize a shape that prompts the correct response. So the shape is utilized by, the shape is then kind of transformed into the natural target stimulus. So, and this is a gradual process, and it's a little bit easier to understand with the visual here. So, here's that example of a stimulus shape transformation. So, we were working on an individual reading the word car, and we start first by having the learner identify that this picture is in fact a car. And then we start to transform that shape by now including the letters in the shape of a car. So now we can see that CAR is present, and across time it gets more and more closer to approximating just the word car. That's an example of stimulus shape transformation. Another example here is a tree. So we have the image of a tree with all the letters of the word tree. So we might ask the learner, what is it? Tree. Next, the next picture, it looks less like a tree, but still resembles a tree. And then now we have kind of this shape of tree. And then, eventually we're going to try to get to where those letters are just, all written level. So take 3 minutes here to identify a goal for a student and create an example of stimulus shape transformation. And feel free to get creative here. For review question, so a teacher makes the word cat look like a cat and slowly fades out the shape until it just spells cat. What type of strategy is the teacher using here? Stimulus shape transformation, stimulus fading, graduated guidance, or time delay? The answer here is stimulus shape transformation. The teacher has taken a stimulus cat and or the word cat and transformed it to look like a cat. And over time, they then fade that out until the shape just spells cat. So some considerations for prompting here. We're talking a little about physical guidance, prompt dependency, and individualization. So for physical guidance, some things that we really want to consider here is that it's a most intrusive prompt. Having somebody physically place their hands on you to perform a desired behavior is really intrusive, and that's something that can be immersive. So we really want to think about somebody's learning history with being physically prompted, moved. We want to make sure that whatever we're trying to do with the use of physical guidance, that it's not something that is aversive, right? And that's because physical guidance can turn into a physical restraint if the individual doesn't accept the prompt. So with prompts, it's something that we want to really remember is that we want prompts to be accepted by our learners. And as soon as we're physically prompting and the learner starts to reject that prompt type, if we continue on, we have now turned that prompt type into a physical restraint because we are no longer um, honoring their freedom to move. We are now restricting that. So some considerations are to utilize hand under hand prompting, to really look for the acceptance of the prompts that you are trying to utilize, and identifying preferences for various types of promptings for each learner. Another consideration is to think about prompt dependency. So prompts are amazing. They are so helpful in allowing all of us to gain new skills in all the environments that we are a part of. But something that we have to be mindful of is that these prompts can take on um, stimulus control of the desired response, and they can be an individual can become dependent on those prompts to be present for them to engage in the target behavior. So our end goal is that we don't want prompting to be there. We don't want it to be present. So we really need to be mindful of how quickly these prompts are beginning to work for our clients, our students, so we can quickly go to our fading techniques to get those prompts out of there so the learner can be independent. So some considerations with that, verbal prompts are typically found to be more difficult to fade for individuals. Uh, and you really just, again, prompts are so useful and they're so helpful, but you have to always be thinking about uh, what prompt fading strategies you're going to go to and when in your plan for teaching new skills for your learners. Last consideration is individualization. So again, going back to incorporating preference, thinking about your individual learners and what types of preferences they have relative to the various types of prompting strategies that are available to you. Again, the more tools in your toolbox, the better as a teacher, because then you can be more flexible into how you plan and utilize those different prompting strategies with each learner. The next piece is ensuring that prompts are effective. Back to that kind of cookie cutter approach. We don't want to be utilizing prompts that are ineffective, right? Kind of defeats the purpose, right? We want to select prompting strategies that work to increase the frequency of the target behavior that we want to see more of. So we want to make sure the prompts that we are utilizing are actually effective, and if they're not, we want to be flexible and ready to adapt and change them. And then last is considering prerequisite skills, kind of going back to that modeling example of like there's a lot of prompting strategies out there, but there are some prerequisite skills that you need to be able, or for those prompts to be successful for different learners. So for your final project, we've created you know, a, an assignment that has multiple parts really here. So first, you have a part of your final project is to identify, the stimuli in your classroom, come up with all, kinds of examples of the different stimuli in your classroom, reflect on those results, how do those stimuli in your classroom affect your students' behavior. Next, you're going to identify one goal for one of your students that you feel needs the help of prompting. And then you're going to fill out that chart below for the current goal and draw an arrow where prompting fits into that chart. So antecedent behavior consequence for a specific goal for a student. Draw an arrow where you think prompting fits into that chart. Step 3 is to identify how you would use response prompts and how you would use stimulus prompts to help this student with this goal. So you're going to give some examples for each. Examples of response prompts, examples of stimulus prompts for that goal. Step 4, you're going to create that prompting hierarchy for the student, defining each prompt in the hierarchy. And remember to make sure that the prompting hierarchy is individualized. Remember, you don't want to pull directly from the slides because we want whatever you think in terms of response prompts or stimulus prompts is best for your individual, right? So you don't have to include it if you don't think it's something that would be beneficial to your student. And then from there, you're going to reflect on results. How did creating that prompt hierarchy, you know, how did you create the prompt hierarchy, individual to that specific client? So with that process, kind of reflecting on that piece. Next, you're going to draw an example of how you would use a stimulus shape transformation or stimulus fading for any goal that a student might have. And then last, reflect on the workshop and on this project and how these principles are likely to change your approach in the classroom. And last, just want to say thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen from all of us at Project Access. Thank you for your hard work. I know that your work often goes unnoticed, but we really are incredibly thankful for the amazing professionals like you who are changing students' lives. For more information, you can scan this QR code. Here are the list of resources that were utilized for today's content.